I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today we have a special guest, and his intro is like kind of like an introduction to like a huge show. So let me get my presenter voice on for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, in a world plagued by repressed emotions, a healer is priceless. I would like for you all to welcome a hypnotist who specializes in helping autistic people free themselves from anxiety, screen addictions, and other forms of repressed emotion so they can become the best, most confident versions of themselves. And our guest today is the autistic hypnotist, Lawrence Bartley. Lawrence, I appreciate you so much for coming on there. Hopefully that wasn't
I
too cringy.
I appreciate you so much for giving me this opportunity. And thank you so much for saying this is an intro for a big podcast. I was kind of a little bit worried when I wrote it. But yeah, sounds great. Love that intro.
Thank you. I was like, okay, I got to put my speaker voice on. I got to be a presenter. I'm like, let me get I can't sound like anything. So, like, that didn't, it's probably going to be cringy when I go back. So it was like, I was like, I don't know how that's going to work, but it worked perfectly. But thank you so much for coming on. I heard this story and I heard your story and your background and thought, he has such an interesting career choice for what he has that a lot of people would be scared to open about and mention. So I appreciate you so much for wanting to come on and share this story with me. So if you would please introduce yourself and just tell my listeners a little bit about what you do, and just feel free to mention a little bit of your story.
All right. Well, as you said, my name is Lawrence Bartley. I call myself the autistic hypnotist. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome or autism back when I was about 10 years old. And as for becoming a hypnotist, I actually got interested in hypnosis more to learn about persuasion, to communicate better with people, because social skills were never really my thing. So I wanted to really learn non-verbal communication, which is speaking to the person's unconscious mind. That's why I got interested in hypnosis. But then I later got in deeper into hypnosis, into the hypnotherapy part of it. Because I had anxiety, I had depression, I first noticed anxiety just happened when I was 15. Just came to me one day when I was walking down school, and it kind of started to spend several years plaguing my life. I refer to those years as the dark years because it's a very dark time of my life. But later on, I attended a hypnosis training over in Canada, and I worked with a professional hypnotist there about 20 minutes. I kid you not, it was short as 20 minutes. Anxiety gone, depression gone. A lot of the problems I had, a lot of anger and guilt and shame, just kind of just left my system. And I got addicted to going to hypnosis trainings. So I started going to ones in Ireland, here in Ireland. I'm from Ireland, in case anyone doesn't know. And I would go to these hypnosis trainings and eventually decided I would become a hypnotist. Because I feel like there's a lot of people who could be helped by it, especially in the neurodivergent community. Because in case you don't know about, I think it's 50%. I can be upwards of 50% of autistic people having some form of anxiety. So I thought it'd be a good market, good job, good career choice for me to become a hypnotist. So I suppose that's pretty much my story.
You know, general people know what hypnosis is because they've seen videos or probably have seen it everywhere. But in case there's someone listening that doesn't know what hypnosis is, can you explain a little bit about what that is and kind of the process of how that works?
Like I said, there's a lot of different ways to do hypnosis. And what hypnosis is it is being is a state of where you're really, really completely focused on something. And the easiest way for people to understand this is on your phone. Your phone hypnotizes you all the time with social media because you get completely absorbed into them. Have you seen people on their phones and their eyes glaze over, they keep staring at it? That is a state of hypnosis. So hypnosis is something that's all around us all the time. As for how a hypnosis with a hypnotherapist works, the hypnotherapist will use that same focus, that same state of focus, and have you turn it inward towards yourself to help you to let go of anxiety, make you more confident, things like that.
So, how long have you been doing the hypnosis, and what was it like doing hypnosis for the very first time?
What was it like? It was nerve-wracking because I was always just wonder of, oh, can I do this? Can I not do this? Because the first time I did it was back in that hypnosis training I mentioned. I was probably in May 2023. So it was a bit back and very nerve-wracking. I mean, during the class, everyone is always worried about whether or not they can do hypnosis. But at this point, I'm like, yeah, I can do it. That makes sense.
Yeah, you know, I this is my thing with hypnosis that I did. I've told the story, but people come and go, so they might not have heard it. I tried to get hypnotized when I was in high school. So this was about 2018, I think so. 2018. We had a guy that came to our school that did like a huge program with our with a lot of schools in our county. And he had come and did this thing where he wanted everyone to close their eyes, see if he could hypnotize us. So of course I closed my eyes, put my head down, and I was like, and then I got a cough attack, and I thought, well, shit. I was literally like, well, so much for that. So of course here I am sitting here looking around, looking at people who had their eyes closed, and I thought, well, this and then people down below me started doing this with their hands, and I thought, okay, this
Oh,
is way more entertaining. This is way more entertaining. So he got some people that went up there, and it was it was funny. It was one of those things of like, okay, I'm kind of glad that I did cough because this is way more entertaining to watch. And it was so funny. They had some people from the audience come down there, and it was just this funny thing. It was just I can't really explain what it was. It was so very entertaining, but um I'll ask you this question. I've had this question answered before, but I kind of like to get different perspectives on it. When you're doing hypnosis, you've seen hypnotists do this thing where they have a group of people sitting up there, and then they have either the person that's facilitating it or a random person come up and be like, "When you open your eyes, your favorite celebrity is going to be right here in front of your face," and it could be like this skinny girl that they have up there as a celebrity, and someone could walk up there and say, "It's The Rock," and I'm just like, what, so from your experience with hypnosis, can you explain to me how they see a celebrity? Do they see the facial features, or do they know that there's, oh, this is just a random person, but they are saying, but it's, I'm having to pretend that it's my celebrity?
It's a compulsion. I remember one time when I was doing hypnosis with a friend, we were messing around. So he hypnotized me. He was also a hypnotist. Then I would laugh like a maniac whenever I saw a certain image, and he would keep showing me the image. It wasn't funny at all. And I could see it. I knew the image, it wasn't funny. I knew logically there was no reason to laugh. But this compulsion kept coming up for me to laugh, to keep laughing louder and louder. And we were in a restaurant at the time. So of course people started looking around and looking at me like I was insane because I just kept laughing. Just ha ha ha. Just, that's crazy, but it's a compulsion to do it. You're aware of what you're doing. So you always have awareness, and it's not mind control. People always think it's my kind of mind control. It's not.
Mhm.
All hypnosis is basically self-hypnosis. We do it with ourselves. And hypnotist shows you the path. You have to go follow the process. But as long as it's not something that you would be against, like if I tried to hypnotize you to kill someone, if you're against killing people, that's not going to happen. I was actually at a stage hypnosis once, and the hypnotist told a woman to swear like a sailor that when you see your husband, you will remember every bad thing he's ever done, and you're going to swear at him like that. And he snapped his fingers, and she stayed silent. And later after the show, she explained she doesn't swear. She got bright red in the face. She looked angry, but she said nothing because she does not swear. So you can't be forced to do things that you don't want to do. But when it's something that you're always comfortable with, like who doesn't want to laugh, then there's a compulsion to go and laugh. So that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of okay. This kind of follow-up question. I remember seeing this a video on YouTube. It was someone doing like a it was kind of a session with some group of kids, and I can't remember if the girl that he had brought up that was being hypnotized knew sign language prior, but I think he wanted like someone to kind of facilitate what he was saying through sign language. But I feel like she didn't know sign language. Does hypnosis when you're under it make you do things that you probably had never could do? Like say if you couldn't skateboard and they said, okay, skateboard on this and you're able to do it professionally, and then once you kind of get out of like hypnosis, you can't do it. Is that possible?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, if you've never skateboarded before, then to my knowledge, I mean, when you practice a certain thing, you build up brain connections, right? Through
Mhm.
neuroplasticity to learn a skill. So if you don't have those connections beforehand, I don't really see how your hypnosis could somehow make it possible for someone to skateboard if they've never skateboarded before.
I can't remember if she didn't know it or she did know. I couldn't really, she didn't look like she knew what she was doing because she had to do it where it was the alphabet because she was having to do all these things. She wasn't doing like this, it was just her hand and she was doing that. So it made me think that she didn't know what she was talking about, or she didn't know it, but she was just trying her best. I don't know. It was like years and years ago when I saw it, so I could be totally getting that wrong anyways.
Well, she can certainly feel confident in what she's doing, even if it is the wrong thing. But no, I'm not 100% sure about that.
Hypnosis kind of has been used for funny things like, dancing very goofy as well as doing all these
Yeah.
challenges. But hypnosis actually does have some benefits to it. It does help people that have overcome drug addiction. It helps people go into recovery and try to get them to quit smoking and all this. So, um, for the people that you have been able to help in these situations of whether it's been from past trauma or past struggles, what's been the biggest problem and the most inspirational story that you've had from a client that's actually had a huge change of life after doing a hypnosis session?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because there's a lot that hypnosis can do, especially with mental health. Everyone kind of has some sort of understanding that can help with weight loss and smoking. And I did have a client who very anxious because I see a lot of people for anxiety. As you can imagine, there's a lot of anxiety in the world. But like I said, with the hypnosis, you can solve things sometimes so fast it's like magic. Because when you start talking to the unconscious mind, all sorts of changes can start to happen really fast. So this particular client, I decided to use a technique where he get him to represent the problem as a metaphor, and we started working to change the metaphor. So I told him, "What is this anxiety like?" He answered, "It's like a graveyard." And I thought that was pretty interesting. Tell me more about this graveyard. It's so dark, it's spooky, I don't like it. So I started working with his unconscious mind to start changing the graveyard, making it brighter, removing the grays. It ends up becoming a really bright flower field. And the thing is, when you change how something is represented in the unconscious mind, you end up changing how the unconscious represents the problem. In his case, the anxiety, which was a graveyard now becoming a flower field, breaks apart, and the anxiety, he doesn't have it anymore. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, I've seen people that have done hypnosis and have done it and they've been able to stop smoking, they've done all these things, so I see it as beneficial. You kind of in your questions kind of bring up an interesting point about how AI therapy could be becoming a thing and for this. So how do you see AI playing a role in this kind in therapy as well as maybe hypnosis in the future?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question because I remember way back when ChatGPT came out, I started hearing stories about people using AI therapy. So I got really interested in the subject, seeing if it's actually something that works. Personally, I don't think it does because I hear stories about people they can spend maybe 4 hours a day for several months on it. And if you're spending that much time, is it really working? You have to start asking the question, is it working? But I've been getting really interested in the whole idea of can you hypnotize someone with artificial intelligence? If you could create an avatar of the hypnotist avatar and give it certain patterns and certain scripts to follow, like I told you earlier, the other story to hypnosis method I used with the man who had anxiety and represents it as a graveyard. Well, if you could ask certain questions in a certain way, what is this anxiety like? How does it make you feel? And start changing the representation, then you could get rid of the problem. So I've been very curious as to whether artificial intelligence could do it with hypnosis, but I don't see it yet. And I don't really see AI intelligence in general. Did I just say AI intelligence? That's a redundant statement. Anyway, artificial intelligence, I don't believe it can be a replacement for therapy. I know a lot of people use it for that, but I think a lot of people also forget that software companies that create them, their goal is to keep you addicted. That a lot of things we call mobile games or entertainment, that we call therapy, the software is really a mobile game.
From your experience with hypnosis, you've specialized in helping people with autism when they do hypnosis. Do people that have autism kind of have a different way is it a different process when you're doing hypnosis, or is it the same as doing like say if I was put under hypnosis, or do you have to kind of have like a different approach when you're doing it?
It depends on the person. because I'm always adjusting towards the specific person. Well, I can tell you once that had an autistic client who was nonverbal, so they couldn't really answer any questions. I had to tell them what to do. Okay, do this, now do this. Nod your head when you have it done. Sh Nod your head for better, shake your head for worse. So I have to adjust to the person who's in front of me. But for the most part, there is no real difference. A lot of autistic people, though, tell me, I don't think I can be hypnotized because I can't relax. Although relaxation is only one type of hypnosis, there's a lot of different methods. Once you understand how to get into talk straight to someone's unconscious mind, you don't really need to relax sometimes. It's just most hypnotists do that because it's peaceful. Who doesn't want to relax? So hypnotizing people who are neurodivergent, it can take some creativity, but the thing about people who are neurodivergent is they tend to be really creative anyway. It can actually work in some cases better because people who are neurodivergent, like I am, one of the I'm not sure if I should call it a symptom because symptom usually has bad connotations, but one of the symptoms for autism as for Asperger's is you spend a lot of time in your own head, just zoning out, just thinking about things. And well, where you go when you start zoning out, where you go when you're in your own head, that's the same place hypnosis takes you. Because like I said, we're doing hypnosis all the time anyway. So when my clients realize that, they realize it is easy to be hypnotized. And I should also point out, because a lot of people think that hypnosis, oh, if I can be hypnotized, it means I'm gullible, I'm susceptible. It's like, no, of course, everyone's being hypnotized all the time by TikTok, by X. There's no intelligence. People that find it hard to believe this, but intelligence has nothing to do with being more easy to hypnotize or less easy to hypnotize. It's happening everywhere.
I heard from someone that even going to sleep at night is kind of you have to go under a form of, I guess, being under a hypnotic state because you're trying to, I guess, try to go to sleep. So what someone's told me that was kind of like a modern thing because, like you said, some people would say, "Oh, well, if you fall asleep or like if you go under a hypnotic state, you're gullible, you're gonna fall for it." And I some people can have that opinion. I mean, some people might do it for just to troll people, but for the most part, I think it's genuinely they do get hypnotized, whether you believe it or not, and that they're still going to be they still are acting not themselves. But as you said, it was like we all kind of do hypnosis, like a hypnotic state. And I remember someone told me that sleeping was kind of a way. And then another thing was I had watched this YouTube video and it said on this hypnotist that come on said, "Have you ever been driving for a long period of time and you're driving and the next second you're in your driveway and never seen that it was some kind of driving hypnosis where it's like you kind of daze out and so and then some another thing was like, oh, have you ever been sitting down at your computer and you're like, okay, I'm gonna work for 20 minutes and then it turns out to be 2 hours. So that's kind of like a thing that we all do. And social media does it. I'm guaranteed you've been on TikTok and you've been scrolling and it's like, okay, I've been scrolling for 15 minutes and they're like, you were on TikTok for 3 hours. And I'm like, I was. And so you just don't realize it. So, um, does does hypnosis have any negative effects on people that maybe have, say, if they're trying to get stop smoking? Have you ever had people that have had negative altercations happen to them where it was like they get hypnotized and it made it worse? Or have you had any negative things happen after that?
I have not, but I should also point out I'm usually really careful about who I work with and also how I work with people. If I'm not comfortable with someone as a client, I'm not taking them on. So there's a lot of people that I don't work with, and I mean, it's interesting you mentioned negative altercations because there's one thing that if you're in a business of hypnotherapy that you should be aware of, which is called contraindications. And contraindications means is a medical term. It means going through the process that's supposed to help you might actually make something worse. And you mentioned the example of quitting smoking and something bad happening. There is actually a contraindication if you're quitting smoking, but you're also bipolar. Because a lot of people don't know this, but there's actually some bipolar medications that can be affected by a sudden lack of nicotine. So, but I've never had that with a client because, again, I'm careful about who I work with.
I think it is important for people to do therapy like this. So if someone out there is listening and maybe they suffer from, my dog really wants to get on the conversation. He's really into it. So if you hear my dog in the background, guys, I do apologize. He's really excited about something. If for people that are maybe have an addiction to smoking or alcohol and they want to maybe try hypnosis for the first time, what advice do you have for them on how they can um, do this, I guess, in a way that they don't feel like it's going to be harmful towards them or like have any negative things happen? What advice do you have for them if they would like to try hypnosis for the first time?
Well, there's a couple of things I would say to them. The first is all hypnosis is to a large degree self-hypnosis, and you're not going to harm yourself, are you? So there really is you shouldn't really need to worry about harm because you're the one in control. You're the one who decides, do I take on board these hypnotic suggestions or not? But if you're going to use hypnosis for something like quit smoking or weight loss or quit drinking, one thing you have to be aware is you need to be the one who wants it to work because if you don't want it to work, you don't follow the process. And if you want something to work, you have to follow the process. Because I get a lot of people, they want to quit smoking, but they actually don't. It's their wives or their husbands or their doctors who want them to quit smoking. You don't want it yourself, you don't follow the process.
For people that want to, because I'm not professional in this, I don't have any background in it, but there might be someone out there listening that might have additional questions. If people would like to maybe ask you questions or get advice about if they think that they need to do hypnosis for their kind of addiction or just have like any problems at all, what is the best way that they can find you and maybe have some help and advice about what they could do to help better themselves through hypnosis?
Okay, well, I do have a website, lawrencebartley.com. And you go to that website, you can also sign up to my email list. And if you join my email list and ask me a question, I will definitely reply to you. But there's also a contact me page there, which, to be honest, is mostly to troll people. Because I also have an FAQ page, and which is where I actually have my email list or my email link, lawrence@lawrencebartley.com. Because I put a lot of effort into the FAQ page. I want you to read it before you contact me. So that's but yeah, you can always reach out to me on my website, lawrencebartley.com. I'm rather active on X, formerly known as Twitter, and those are pretty much the main two things I use. I started getting more into TikTok recently, making videos for that. So I suppose you'd always DM me there, but
Yes,
those would be the main places.
I will put all of his information in the description box below. I'll put links to his website as well as his social media accounts so that if you're more than welcome to go check him out, follow him on there to keep following his journey. And then if you have general questions or maybe need some advice, you have the resources there for you to have for to be able to reach out to them. And I'll put them in the description box for easy access for you guys. You can also follow me on social media as well. Instagram and TikTok at Lethal Venom Podcast, as well as on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at Noah's Podcast. And as always, feel free to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. It's available on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It's everywhere. So feel free to follow the podcast on any of those platforms to get notified when new episodes come out. Thank you to everyone for tuning in to today's episode. Hope y'all enjoyed it. And hopefully you learned some really good advice and helped learn something new. And hope y'all have a great rest of your day and week. Be safe, and I'll see you on the next episode of Lethal Venom.